NBA didn't grasp a hold of in the beginning, keep your expenses under control. You can't go wild. You have to, in my mind, it's like as if it was your money. You can't overspend until you know what it's going to be. And so I think kind of keeping things in check, be responsible. You got to spend time marketing, the use of, digital media and platforms. There's many ways of free advertising. Capitalize on those things. And then I'm big into boots on the ground. It's a word of mouth thing. You got to drag people and you got to get them there because when they're there, they really enjoy the product.
You mentioned Simone earlier. We all know you have a great relationship with Waylon and have for a long time, and Lindsay's about the easiest person to get along with I've ever met. Simone's interesting. Simone's tough. She came into the league as the number one pick and a star. She's a scorer. What has the relationship with her been like over the years, or what's it like now?
Yeah, Simone for me, I remember in the beginning, I inherited Simone that was coming off an ACL injury, and she also, right before the start of training camp, had abdominal surgery, a very serious abdominal surgery. And so 2010 for me was my first year with Simone, so it was really Simone just a shell of herself. And we sat down after the 2010 season and just kind of talked about, what her time here had been in Minnesota. She loves it here. This is an incredibly loyal person to this franchise. That is one thing we appreciate the heck out of for her. She could have easily said, hey, when we're getting, when Maya Moore was going to be our draft pick, she might have said, well, I want to go be the star somewhere else. I don't want to have to share the spotlight. Simone accepted everything and always does, accepts, suggestions on ways to improve to help our team. The greatest thing about Simone is her ability to bring levity to situations. And I'm talking stressful, tense situations, either in the locker room or in a timeout. She is hilarious. Simone is fun to be around and has a tremendous balance. Like you said, she's got a passion for it, competitive drive. But we count on her. I count on her to keep me in check. I can't take myself too seriously or the team too seriously. And that's Simone's biggest role with me.
You used a phrase today. You said special burn. Do you remember saying that?
I do.
Tell me what you meant by that.
Well, we were talking about why this group can continue to do what they do. Why do they keep winning year over year over year? And I talked about the burn that they have inside of them. It's a competitive fire that is unmatched by most athletes. When you have it, and you have, in our case, we have more than one. We have, probably at any given time, I could easily give you 6 names of people that hate to lose. And I'm talking, and it's not just hate to lose the game. I'm talking hate to lose a shooting drill. Or when I have the players over the house and they're playing bags in the backyard. Or they fired up the TV and they're playing, whatever video game. They hate to lose at everything. And that's just something that's inside of them. And I look for it when we are scouting. It is one of the biggest things that I want. I want someone that has that. They'll do anything to win a possession or a game, whatever it is. And so we look for that. And I just happen to be really lucky that we have a collection of players that have that special burn.
Special burn. That's good. That should be a T-shirt or a bumper sticker.
Special
or
burn. We'll hashtag it.
How's Waylon handling the double employment?
I tell you, I've been impressed. I was worn out after it all happened. I thought maybe she would have a period of time that, a little bit of a hangover and have to recover from all of it. She's been unbelievable in the way that she hasn't needed time to adjust. She's dove into it. On the University of Minnesota side, to feet, getting her staff together, signing players. I have her, for 6-7 hours in a day, and I go home and I read that she signed something. I thought, when the hell did she do that? That maybe she hired another staff member, and so early on that we had a lot of communication, but now she's gone. Like she's down the road and she's in a direction, and she's got a really strong feel about her players and what she wants to have happen, and like things she might want to run X and O wise, players that she knows that she needs to recruit. And then, I think for us, it'll be a really good time for her maybe to get on the road. I think being home it's pretty taxing. So I think she'll enjoy the road quite a bit, where the only thing you can do is maybe be on the phone. You can't be anywhere else. But she has obviously continued to be a great teammate and pour all that she has into being the point guard of a defending champion. So she's been unbelievable.
I found it really interesting in the story Kent Youngblood did in my newspaper that Lindsay almost said that she almost needed something like this to reinvigorate herself. And you wouldn't think that's not logical. Work more to feel more energetic, but it seems to be working.
I think it was take your mind off of preparation for another season. This 7-year run, and it's really 8 years, 7 years of success, but 8 years that Lindsay's been here in Minnesota. Our 2010 season was pretty taxing mentally, and then obviously things turned in a hurry. But this run is not just physically taxing, but mentally taxing, and they're tired. They're tired, and they're having to dig really, really deep to try to get it going again. And for some, it came late. Some it came right away. Like I think Maya was ready to start the next season right away. But for Lindsay, for whatever reason, it was a little bit harder for her to get it going. So I think she needed, like you said, just something to take her mind off of it. And now she's completely different. The look in her eye is where we need it to be, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful that she got the opportunity.
Steph Shemp was telling us about the awards that the Brewers here won. She called it winning the Oscars. We have Matt, one of the brewmasters here. Do you want to give your last name, or is it a witness protection thing?
No, it's Ace.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't care if you know who I am or where I am.
Well, Matt, thank you for having us here. Thanks for joining us. I don't know anything about making beer. Tell me, how hard is it? How hard is it in this day and age to separate yourself from all the competition?
It's just like any other job. Ours, except you go home at the end of the day and you kind of smell like a gym sock and a farm animal. Kind of. All we're doing is just making sugar water essentially all day. We spend most of our time cleaning. So everyone thinks it's like a glamorous job. It's really not. You just get dirty.
I worked one summer. I was a smelter. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but you don't want to know what that is. Basically, breaking down engines and so people can melt it. And I spent for a year, I smelled like oil. I could not get it out of myself. My wife, I know, loves the Kolsch. We've been talking about the blueberry and all that. Do you have a favorite beer here?
I like anything new, because we brew the Kolsch and the IPA once a week, every week. I've been here for about 3 years, so I like a little bit of variety, which we're actually rolling out our summer seasonals right now. We have a German Hefeweizen that's ready to go, a Simcoe IPA, which is actually kind of a sessionable IPA, so you get that big hop flavor, but it's actually low in alcohol, so you can have a few. You're not going to get too bogged down by it. And then we also have our Blueberry Blonde coming out too, which seems to be one of the more popular beers that we make here at the Freehouse.
How did you get into this line of work?
By accident, truly. I applied for an internship about 10 years ago at a local brewery here in Minneapolis, and it was right before the craft beer boom kind of happened. When I applied for the job, there was about 15 breweries in the state, and I got the job, but about 2 years later, my boss told me that I was the only one who applied for the job. So I got it by default, and then, I don't know, just kind of took it and ran with it.
You didn't have to admit that. You could have told us you beat out 2,000 people. Did you have any questions, Cheryl?
I don't. It's not my area of expertise. When you start talking hoppy and all that, I've heard the terms, but my taste, my palate for beer, I wish it was much better. So I need to hang out with you.
I might have to set you up with a flight.
Yeah, we can do that.
Do you find yourself drinking a lot of beer? I know it's a very personal question, but...
Yes, you don't. I don't really have a choice. Sometimes, my mom sounds a little concerned. It's like, it's like 9 a.m. It's like, Mom, I have to do this. It's quality control. But yeah. I love it. You don't get in the beer business if you don't love beer. So.
Right. How long does it take to make a beer?
It all depends on the style. That's where you get in your differences between ales and lagers. Ales you can crank out in about 3 weeks. Lagers take about 6 weeks. If it's a high alcohol beer, it can take months. Wow. But for the most part, like our core 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, about 3 to 5 weeks from brew day to tap.
Give us your top 5 most popular beers here.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kolsch. Right?
Number 1 and number 2 are literally our number 1 and number 2 bestsellers. In the summer, the Blueberry Blonde is just people love it. They can't get enough of it, which is kind of funny to me because it's such a simple beer. It's a blonde ale with blueberries in it.
Don't tell them that.
Yeah, don't tell people it's that easy. Come on.
Oh, yeah, it's really, really difficult. And then, for the hopheads, the Simcoe IPA coming out is really popular. And then our two award-winning beers, the barley wine, that's just a really big barrel-aged, boozy, dark beer. So if you want something on the opposite end of the spectrum as those other three I just listed, that's the one for you. And then our Goza was something kind of fun. It's a kettle sour beer. So what we do is we brew half a beer, and then we inoculate it with lactic bacteria, the same kind of bacteria that makes yogurt. And we let it naturally sour the beer in the kettle, and then we finish the brew. And that's what kind of gives it that nice sour beer.
Oh.
Whenever I'm looking for a beer, I always ask, did you inoculate this with bacteria? That's the big selling point.
Hopefully not, because 99% of the time that's a bad thing.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you and your company having us here. Again, the next show is June 11th. By then, I'm going to be an expert on all these beers. Final thought, Matt. Pressure. The pressure is on. Let me see. Let me think of an easier question.
It is Minnesota Craft Beer Week.
Okay,
this
there
week.
You go. I knew you'd come up with something.
You got to go out and support your local craft brewery. Hopefully, it's the Freehouse.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. Tell me about the Lynx Los Angeles rivalry.
Well, it's one that has sort of evolved, I think, maybe in the last 3 seasons. I think that if we look at our 7-year run, it's changed a little bit. It was more of along the Phoenix. We had to get through Phoenix to be able to get to the finals, and we had the separation of conferences, West and East. And then now that with the new playoff format, I think catapulted these two teams because the league was interested in the 2 best teams playing each other, and they thought with a revamped playoff format that might happen. And that's exactly what's happened. The last 2 seasons, pitting, us and LA against each other. It's the 2 teams that have some awfully talented players. Mm-hmm. It's more than just one player. You're going to have, their entire starting lineup is really, really good. And then they've added some pieces to the bench. And we've sort of done the same thing. And they have an MVP one year. We have an MVP another year. I would just say that there's a very healthy respect for sure, but then a very, very healthy dislike for one another because they're that good. We're that good and they're that good, and so and we each want something. And I think the teams are separated by 3 points through all of this, which is just crazy. That's a really fascinating stat. You don't know it when you're going through it. You just know that you won that game. You don't. Nobody does like a cumulative, and so somebody did that. And so through the last 2 seasons, separated by 3 points, and obviously they won a championship and we won a championship, and we're both. I think LA was picked to win it again this year, so we suspect that we might be up there as well. We'll have to see how the season plays out.
Well, your Twitter account noted that Maya Moore, in the WNBA GM poll, Maya Moore was picked to be the prospective MVP, and LA was picked to be the prospective champion, and the Lynx Twitter account just put an LOL by that. I think surmising that they think if Maya is that good this year, that you're going to win the championship.
Well,
it's never that simple though.
It's not, but what's interesting is there's 12 teams that fill out these surveys. You can't vote for your own team, and you don't put a whole lot of stock into it because I don't think they have a very high success rate in picking the champion. However, I know this particular team of ours, the Minnesota Lynx, gets awfully tired of in most seasons not being, even if we had just won a championship, not being picked to win the darn thing. So. The only thing I came up with was that they feel like at the end of the day the coaching just holds them back, and that the players, can they overcome the coaching? And so that's the only thing we thought of. LA's got a way better coach than Minnesota.
Anybody here buying that? I don't think so. I will say that in the same poll, you were picked as the best coach. Whalen was picked as the most likely to coach, which turned out to be true.
Well, that wasn't hard, right?
Turned out to be true. But they also listed you as the best motivator, and you tried to downplay that today. But being a motivator has to be part of your toolkit, right?
Well, I think, the word motivator, I mean, as a coach, yeah, that's your job. Your job is to motivate, to try to get them to buy in. I'm in sales. I always say that when I speak to business. I'm in sales. I'm trying to sell an idea.